Hey everybody, welcome to part number 70 whatever. Okay, so it's hot, humid, not very comfortable to be outside. So I figured, even though I was going to plan on saving this for a evening repair job, I'll work on this now. Plus, I got to get moving on it. It's got to get done. So this is the next thing that's holding me up. I finally got that stubborn bolt out. Of course, those of you who caught the last episode were able to catch the carnage. There's what's left of the bolt. This is my errant attempts at drilling it out. I have the new bolt ready to go. No, I didn't go with stainless. It's one of these, I don't know, anodized or coated ones. This bolt's probably never going to have to come out again in the lifetime of this motor. Probably in the lifetime of my ownership of it anyways. Alright, so here is a different kettle of fish. Remember, I had to get medieval on this thing with my bandsaw, my portable bandsaw. Boy, that came in handy. Get a little oopsie there. Went a little deep. That's okay though. So I got to get these remnants of the arms off of this because I want to reuse this, even though it looks pretty horrible. It's actually still got some structural integrity to it. Kind of like me. It looks horrible, but it still has some integrity. So I got to get these off of here. So I'm thinking, well, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, you're thinking good old brute force of the shop press should suffice. I mean, this one, crying out loud, this one should want to pop right off. I got like almost 50% of it cut away, so there's not a lot left there. I don't know what this dingus is. Does that have some purpose with the spring? Maybe? I don't know. Alright, let's get pressing. So this shaft needs to be pushed out in that direction. And this has got a lot of rust buildup around it here. So I think to increase my odds of success here, I think I'm gonna try and get some of this out. Oh, nice piece of scrap aluminum. Now I'm about to flip this around and do the other side. And before I do, because this spring is about to fall off, I want to make note of exactly how this spring is on here. Might not make a damn bit of difference, but I want to put it back on here the same way it's coming off. So this loop is kind of going over the top that way, so it's kind of, see if I can explain this to myself. This is going over the arm the opposite direction that this hook is coming up. See this? Does that make sense? Worst case scenario, I can always just look at my own video. How about that? Well, at first side came out relatively easily, but this side, putting quite a bit of pressure on that thing. It's a 20-ton bottle jack, and it's not giving. So I'm going to put some heat to it. Now I could also put some PB Blaster on there and let that soak, but that's such a thick casting that that's rusted into. And the thing is, I know I'm going to use heat, and if I put PB Blaster on there, then the heat's just going to make it smoke like crazy. And I really don't feel like setting off the smoke detectors in the entire house. I actually started to melt the cast aluminum on the other side there. That a hoot? No, I'm not going to reach under there to grab it so it doesn't fall. Not this time. Well, not with my bare hand anyways. Voila! Let's check out the anatomy of what I did here. So is that a separate piece? Son of a gun, that's a separate piece and I melted it. Aw. It's some kind of washamajiggy. Spacer or something. Thought it was actually part of this casting. Oh! Yeah, so this is like a aluminum spacer that was on here. I wonder, what's the purpose of that? Was there one on the other side? Nope. See, that shoulder's part of the casting. No such animal on this side. Huh. I like them apples. So one of the questions I still have in my mind is whether or not this is in fact supposed to be a press fit into here, or were these just seized in there from age, because there's ample evidence of corrosion and pitting. So water had migrated in there and rusted these in there. So one clue might be to look at the replacement brackets that I bought. If I look at the bracket, since this is a used bracket, I know they had to have removed, obviously, this from being mounted. And if I look real closely under magnification and good lighting, I should be able to see the marks that would indicate whether or not this was a press fit or not. I actually see what appears to almost be the remnants of some sort of, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'll tell you what, this doesn't look like it was pressed in or out. Well, maybe on this side. So, just for the heck of it, now that I clean this up somewhat, let's see how tight it is in this nice clean bore. Relatively clean. Not at all. Well, there you go. It's not a press fit. In fact, there's nothing to stop this from just keeping on going right on. Both sides. How do you like that? How do you like them apples? That one's a little tighter. There we go. Ain't that a kick in the head? Alright, so I cleaned up these areas right here, and now the more I think about it, the more it makes sense that this can't be a press fit, because then you'd have to simultaneously press these two end brackets onto this centerpiece, and that would be just too difficult to do. So makes sense that this should all be slipping together. I did notice that there was a thrust washer on this side, and I found the other one. So there are thrust washers, which are really, they're just shims, but they act like thrust washers in between here and the bracket. So I'll put one of these on each side. I obviously want to grease this all up before I put this all back together, and I thought about it, and I ended up deciding I'm going to actually use anti-seize compound. This is Permatex anti-seize lubricant, and you know, I thought, well, maybe do I want waterproof grease or something like that, but I think this is going to do just fine. So I'll put a little bit in there to act as a lube for this too. I think I'll just do a quick dry fit, make sure that I'm on the right track here as far as how this goes back together. So this is on the inboard side of the transom, so this has to go either here, or actually it could go here. But I think I already looked at these and determined that they were identical. Yeah, they both have the same part number on them, 1440-3255, so it doesn't matter which side I put these on. Good. So I have to make sure I put this rod in before I go too far. This rod is a replacement rod, and I put in a couple years ago. The old rod was so badly seized, this tube was so badly seized onto the old rod, I had to cut it out. I forgot to get this little area right here that would end up seizing into the bracket if I don't. Now, before I forget, put the spring on, and I remembered the spring goes on this way. But does it go in front or in back of that? Oh man, I don't remember. Oh, bummer. Alright, I just went and checked my video, and I'm glad I did, because I've got this spring on backwards. This goes, the spring is going on over the top, going towards the rear, and hooks onto this pin right here, which is hilarious because it's not even under tension right now. So anyways, yeah, I think that's it. I think that's right. Now this slides on all three of these things at the same time. Alright, it's starting to get dark anyways. I'm just going to put this nut on. Nut and lock washer on here. Snug it up a little bit. And I'm going to go in, because it's getting dark and the mosquitoes are biting. Well, I've been so busy with everything that I haven't been able to work on this in a while, and the reason why I haven't posted a new episode of the Mercury Tower of Power is because the video that I had shot previously wasn't enough to constitute like even, I don't know, 15 minutes. So I figured, well, I got to get back to this. Just to give you an idea how bad things are as far as time, it is now August 3rd. And I think the last video I shot on me working on this was back in, I don't know, early July, mid-July. So it's just one of those situations where it's just driving me crazy, the fact that this thing hasn't been on the water yet this summer, and we're already into August. So without further ado, let's, I don't even remember where I left off with this thing. So Oh yeah, okay. I do remember I found a rubber collar thing on the bench downstairs, and it reminded me that it goes on this thing. Okay, so the piece in question that I found on the bench is this rubber. What's left of this rubber collar. The funny part is this is so dry rotted and cracked that I think it's actually pretty pointless to even bother with it at this point. I could make replacement ones. It also fits on here so loosely. So here's one of them. Okay, it actually fits a little bit snug on where the diameter is good, but here the diameter is so weak from being eroded that this is just going to flop around anyways. And then the question of, well, what's the point of that thing? I think there's supposed to be one on each side of where this spring is on this post, and I don't even know what really good it's going to do, but it's no big deal. I didn't finish putting this together, so oh yeah, I did put this on. So I gotta unbolt this, tap this back off, put this in the correct order, put it back together, make sure my never sees is on here, and then the last thing I think I was getting ready to deal with, which I'm glad I hadn't done yet, in lieu of the fact that now I'm going to want to take this off and put this on, is getting this spring in its correct position on here, where it clips in on this right here. So that ought to be fun. So I had to look at my video to remind myself how this spring was oriented when it comes up onto this post that goes through here. And it comes up from the back side and wraps around it like this. So this is the correct orientation, which means this had to hook onto that pin from this direction. And I'll tell you, this is one tough spring, and the gap between the end of the hook here and the coil is not wide enough. So I had a hell of a time getting this on here. I mean, I was about ready to give up, had already bashed my thumb. When I finally keyed on, the trick was to hold the spring on there with one hand like this, and then use my chisel on the bottom here and tap it on so it started to actually go around the post and popped it in. And now that's on. So, I mean, it's good that it's like that. That way when this spring is slack, it can't fall off of there. Because I was wondering about, now that this whole bracket assembly swivels so freely, that spring can actually be left with zero tension on it at times now. So now I just slip this through and drop this, what's left of that rubber thing, back on there, and this fella can go back on here. But first we got to get that rod assembly through there. That's this rod assembly here. And I got some excess never sees on here. Let me just, that's making a mess on everything. I don't know, is there really such a thing as excess never sees? Because it's the one spot where you don't have it on that you know is going to seize up, right? There we go. Now we're cooking. Get the washer. And the wife's home from grocery shopping, so I'm going to have to take a break and help load groceries in the house. Oh well, alright, we'll do that now. Okay, so I snugged up these nuts, these big giant ones here. Put these back on. I had taken this all apart. I'm going to put this U-shaped strap on with the replacement bolt, which of course I just forgot downstairs. Anyways, come back up with that. then I think I got to take this cover off, see how that's put together, because when I took the cover off on the other side, a rubber piece fell out, and I got to see how that goes in there. So when I put this cover that I took off on the other side back on, hopefully I'll have everything put together correctly. I'm really getting sick of that key switch on that stupid thing. Okay, I finally got this. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get this side to come down. And then after I unhooked it from the tractor, was moving it, I realized the prop was caught underneath this 45-degree support on the other side. So as soon as I cleared that, I knew I loosened this back up, it would pop down, and it did. And then I just kind of shored up this side to level it a little bit more by eye. I don't plan on leaving it on here very long. I plan on getting the boat over here and transferring it to the boat as soon as possible. Just working on the rest of it from mounted on the back of the boat. So what I was talking about over here was when I was trying to take this whole bottom bracket off to no avail. I took this cover off, and when I took this cover off, I'm pretty sure that this rubber cap doohickey, alright, that this fell out of here. And I don't know what it went on. The only thing it looks like it could go on, to me, would be covering that bolt, actually just in here like this, over that bolt head. But the funny thing is, there isn't really much to indicate to me that this has been squeezed over that bolt head. Unless it's been off of there. It could have been just in there like this for a long time now. I don't even know how critical this is. I mean, quite frankly, what is the purpose of this? I guess that's a shock absorber of sorts. I guess this is made to be able to flex and move back. So this piece right in here, it looks like, is made to be able to move independent of this piece. So this is a bumper. And if this were to end up being driven all the way back to here, this bumper, I guess, gives it a little bit of cushion. That's the only thing I can figure. But I figure if I take this cap off carefully and I take a peek in there, I might be able to see if that in fact is what's going on here. Because I would like to try and get it in there the correct way. Do at least one thing right. I try, generally speaking, I like to try and do at least one thing right each episode. I know, it's a long shot. But... Alright, so I guess I should have repositioned the camera, otherwise you guys aren't going to see. The thrill of me discovering what the hell's wrong. I'll tell you what's wrong. What's wrong is I'm spending way too much time on this old motor. It's a popular YouTube series. Oh, you son of a basket weaver.
The thing popped right off just like the other one did, and guess what came flying out into my hands with it? The same rubber bumper. So I think these were both already off. Question is, why does it come flying out? Now that's weird. I don't know if the audio on the camera, the microphone, is picking that up, but there is somebody on the lake right now who is absolutely beating the tar out of their jet ski. I don't know what purpose what they're doing could possibly have. There it goes again. I don't know if they're having some kind of problem with it and working on it and it's doing that, or that just seems weird. All right, I'm going to take a leap of faith and say that these things go on here like this, just like that. Why they come flying out when this cover pops off from spring tension, I don't know. And by the way, putting this cover on isn't exactly a walk in the park either, because there's got it. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna do the one on the other side first because I think it's just easier. So first, we're gonna pop this little. There we go. That's in. All right. Make sure these springs are seated all the way into their little crevices. And then this cover has a little lip on it right here. That lip needs to engage the front there, and then this gets pushed back. I think. Like that. And then you gotta get the screw in before it gets a chance to pop on out. Mosquito! I don't need equine encephalitis or any of that other crap. I just had Lyme disease, or at least they think I did. I'm just finishing up a course of antibiotics because they believe I may have contracted Lyme disease. It was one of those deals where they went and said, yeah, you know, the bite on your back looks like it could turn into the telltale signs. And if we tested you right now, you would test negative for Lyme disease, but that doesn't mean that you don't have it. And they said by the time you test positive for Lyme disease, then you'll test positive the rest of your life. Not like that antibody or whatever will be in there forever. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. But to be on the safe side, since I had the symptoms, starting to get symptoms, and had this weird bite on my back, they went for that. All right. Enough of that little PSA regarding Lyme disease. Why did I stop? Oh, I know what I was going to do. I was going to grab a smidgen of anti-seize compound to put on this screw that looked like it was pretty corroded, and I was lucky that it came out when it did. And you know what? Rather than run back to the workshop and get it, I have this handy dispenser right here on my wrist. There we go. Yeah, that's more than was on there when I started. There we go. Alright, that's good enough. Can't see it from my house. Well, actually you can, but never mind. And as long as I'm in a perfect position to do so, I'm going to put this U-shaped safety strap back on. The replacement bolt to replace the horrors of what I did to that other one. Oh yeah, of course. Why not? Why would it go right through? Oh, you're kidding me, right? There's something in there. Hey, you know, I wonder if there were threads in that hole. Well, that sure would have explained all the trouble I was having getting this out. Well, hell, I could see him in there. You flippin' idiot, Steve. That's a threaded hole on this side. So the nut that I took off of there, all the nut does is keep that from backing out. It's extra insurance. No wonder why I couldn't drive that rusted bolt out. See? I knew if you guys sticked around and watched long enough, you'd see me pull a bonehead move. Turns out the bonehead move was actually a couple episodes ago when I attacked this bolt the way I did. But I didn't realize it until just now. Steve, why are you taking it back out? Because I just realized, why am I putting that in there without some anti-seize on the threads? You know, it'll be interesting to see how much of the threads are left inside there. As I tighten this and I start to put some tension on those threads, will it just strip out? Yeah. Yeah, it's no longer really tightening because probably half of that hole, the threads are destroyed from me drilling it out like a madman, like a flippin' fool, like a man possessed, like a man on fire. A man at the rodeo. I don't even know what that means. Like a man in need of a 9/16 inch wrench that he didn't bring out here. That'll do it. Same deal on this side. And if I did this right, I should be able to do that. Pop off. So I am a little curious about how tight these nuts should be. So I just turned them until they snugged up. If I tighten those more, that will make this harder for this to tilt. Which right now, it's pretty damn hard for that to tilt. Ow. I just moved a certain way. My back. Good old man back. So if I back off on these, then that should tilt, right? Because this is all freed up now. Yeah, see? Tilt's no problem. And remember, these have nylon bushings in them and they're self-locking. However, I noticed that this one, the bushing's so badly worn that it doesn't really self-lock anymore. So really, I should replace both of those, because if that loosens up, it could eventually just work its way off. Although, I don't see what kind of a problem, how much of a problem that could cause, because this tube is seized in here. We know that. But, you know, don't overthink it. Well, I was just getting ready to quit for the night, and I decided to scrape some dirt off of the side of this stand. Now, this stand had been laying on its side since the spring, or early spring, or whenever it was that I started working on this year. So it hasn't been down for more than a year on its side, because the motor was on it. Unless it was on the ground on the side over there when they fell over, because the other motor was on it. So they must have been laying on the ground over there in the field. Well, anywho, I scraped some dirt off, and much to my horror, discovered, I think these are termites. And here in New England, we don't get termites like you guys do down south. But we fear them the same amount. So these are what I believe are termites. Subterranean. So when this is subterranean, meaning they well, below the earth, but then they construct these tubes that allow them to move up a foundation in a hidden area to get to the wood. Unlike carpenter ants, which burrow into wood to make their nesting places and do not actually digest the wood, termites actually are burrowing into the wood to eat it. They actually are much more destructive than carpenter ants in that respect. So I just sprayed the bejesus out of everything here with this insect killer stuff I have. This 7 kills over 100 insect pests. I don't even know whether or not it's going to have an effect on these guys, but it's all I've got handy. Kills grasshoppers, moths, beetles, Japanese beetles, grasshoppers, ants, crickets, cockroaches, ticks, bees, earwigs, something else, fleas, millipedes, and more listed. Yeah, I think there's a good chance that this is going to do them in. Anyways, so check out what they down here in this corner. There's holes, little galleries or galleys or whatever they call them there. Okay, but watch this. Look at that. Full depth. I could stick this in there. That's all completely, look at, oh, the little suckers are falling out of there as I do that. Yeah, so this is not good. Now, we can't rely on this stand.